Each year, billions of people across the world suffer from the common cold. If you believe most mothers, catching a cold is all to do with how we dress.
Oh, my mum always used to say, wrap up warm.
I wrap up warm.
Wrap warm.
You wrap up warm.
Put many layers on.
Wear lots of clothes, never go out with wet hair.
Because if I did, then, you know, I would catch pneumonia and probably die.
But doctors have always insisted that catching a cold has nothing to do with being cold. So who's right? The mothers or the doctors? Well, a recent study at Cardiff University has revealed that mother may have been right after all. It was carried out at the Centre for the Common Cold, and the man in charge was Professor Ron Eccles.
A couple of thousand years ago, everyone believed that cold weather was the cause of common cold. I think at the beginning of the 20th century, up until 1950 or so, we got the discovery of viruses. That was the solution for science. Everything to do with common cold was associated with viruses.
Buoyed by the discovery of viruses, scientists in the 1950s and 60s carried out two seminal studies which concluded that catching a cold was everything to do with viruses and nothing to do with chilling flesh. The results have stood for over 50 years and still appear in modern textbooks, but Ron wasn't sure they were right.
There was only perhaps half a dozen or a dozen people in each group. These are far too small numbers for any proper statistical comparison.
Ron designed a new experiment that was bigger, better and more natural. He increased the number of subjects to over 180. He got half of them to dunk their feet in buckets of cold water.
It's cold.
While the other half maintained toasty, well-wrapped toes. Then, rather than administering a virus, he simply waited for nature to take its course.
Within the chilled group, 13 out of 90 developed colds over the next 4 or 5 days after chilling, whereas only 5 out of 90 developed colds in the control group. This was a highly significant difference between the two groups.
What a result! 50 years of supposedly scientific fact blown clear out of the water. But what was going on? Why on earth were the group with cold feet more likely to catch a cold? The answer, rather surprisingly, is all to do with the nose. The main function of the nose is to warm up the air we breathe before it enters the lungs. The body achieves this with ingenious plumbing. It diverts hot blood to the lining of the nose, which acts like a radiator, heating up the cold air on the way in. But in really cold weather, the body switches to survival mode and diverts the blood away from the nose to the centre of the body to prevent heat loss. And that's great news for the common cold virus. It lives inside the nose, where it fights a running battle with white blood cells, the foot soldiers of our immune system. These cells are carried to the battleground in the bloodstream. So when cold weather shuts off the blood, it also weakens our defences.
The chilling causes constriction of the blood vessels. This reduces the supply of white cells and allows the virus that extra foothold to replicate and to grow inside the nose and to create those nasty symptoms of blocked nose, runny nose and sneezing that we're all so familiar with when we get a common cold. For a long time, mothers have been telling their children to wrap up, and children can retort, well, scientists say there's no link between colds and chilling. But now we've got this support.
Ron wants to do more experiments to check that his hypothesis is indeed correct. But until then, it pays to remember that Mother really does know best.